Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 198 of the Nope Coach podcast. This is still November. I'm your host, Suzanne Culberg, and today's topic, saying no to overthinking. Yesterday, I went to watch my daughter Xanthi in her first cheerleading competition. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but my only exposure to cheerleading has been the Bring It On movies. There's like 5 of them in the series. I think I've seen 4. And there was no cheerleaders for the teams where I went to school. I don't know if there is now, but there wasn't when I went to school. In Australia, it hasn't really been a big thing. But in the last few years, it has really taken off. So yesterday was a competition day and they had levels and grades and tumbling and non-tumbling, and it was a whole thing. It was an experience that I had no preconceptions for. So as I was sitting in the bleachers, I guess you called them, with my son Casimir and my husband Jeremy was totally disinterested, uninterested, not interested, to say the least, except for when Xanthi came on. But other than that, he just played games on his phone. But Casimir and I, my son, we were fascinated. And it was interesting to watch how some routines were technically flawless. They hit every beat, they landed every move, but you didn't feel, well, from my experience, I didn't feel any heart. As I was watching them perform, I could see them counting. Like I could see the look on their face. I could see them waiting for the mark. I could see the thought going into the move. And I'm not a judge by any means. I don't know how to score these things. But as I said, some of the routines were technically flawless, but I did not, as a participant, feel connected to them in any way, shape, or form. Yet there were other routines that had fumbles, lots of fumbles, but there was so much soul. You could see the pure delight on the participants' face that they were doing something they truly loved. They loved being there. They managed to engage the audience, like just with the hand signals and riling them up and the fluidity of their body. And they were a delight to watch, even if technically there was fumbles. Some people were nearly dropped, though thankfully weren't. And it just has me thinking, she says on the episode about saying no to overthinking, though, how often in life we hold ourselves back from doing the thing we truly desire because we can't do it right or perfect or good enough. Say, for example, like I think of this show, this podcast. I started it, this one, the Nope Coach, on a tear, deciding to do daily. And for the first 100 days, I loved it. I pressed record. I talked about whatever I wanted to talk about. There was no thoughts to where it was going or how it would convert or how it would lead to my business. It was just purely me showing up, pressing record, and being in the moment. Obviously, we can't live our entire lives like that. We've got bills that we have to pay. We have responsibilities. We have chores. We have food. We have ways in which to provide. So at some stage, something is taking a lot of our time and energy. Some thought is required into where it's leading, but not so much thought that we get into the overthinking and we lose sight of why we want to do it in the first place. Because there can be a point where, this cheerleading routine made me think of it. This podcast made me think of it. The reason we got into the game, whether you're writing, creating a blog, doing a podcast, sharing in some way for the pure joy of it versus the technicality of having it look flawless, edited, precise, perfect. And this is just something to consider. And in a rare moment, I actually took some notes today. When we start doing something, we're not overthinking it. We're following the flow. We're following the muse. We're following our desire. we get to a point often, especially if it's a creative thing, like, a podcast or a book or a piece of art or something that you're sharing with the world, where you have other people's input, become surrounded by people who are, well-meaning as they are, but telling you what you should be doing, their voices, their opinions, their thoughts, their comments. That shit can get really heavy and it can get exhausting. And often people, as well-meaning as they are, don't think about the budgets. Like some of the things people suggest for this show, I love you guys fiercely. These things cost a lot of money. And, when we are getting constant feedback from others about what we're doing, what it takes to be successful, where it is that we're taking this thing, the soul, the deeper voice, the thing from within that brought us to this in the first place, we can lose touch with that. When you walk your own path, dance to the beat of your own drum, follow your own whimsy, are not overthinking, that requires a level of grit that many don't have, because other people, with their input and their suggestions, they inadvertently sway us from the path. Let's go do this instead. Let's do that instead. And sometimes the joy is sucked from the thing. So my message for you today is, what is it that you desire to do or create or have or be? It could be, something work or business related. Could be starting your own business, starting your own podcast, writing a book, writing a blog, creating an Instagram or a social media platform for a fledgling business. And where do you hold yourself back from doing that because of overthinking? I don't have the right colors. I don't have the right fonts. I don't have the right editing skills. I don't have the right, you insert the thing here. And because of your overthinking, you never actually take action and follow through with the thing on the first place. Because my takeaway from that cheerleading event, first and foremost, was pure pride for my daughter for having a go. It takes stones. It takes so much grit to get out there in front of an audience, no matter what size, and put your heart and soul on display for others to critique or to give input on. So that was my first takeaway. But my second takeaway was saying no to overthinking, to re-engaging with the process and the joy of the things I have. An example I thought was this podcast, showing up daily, talking about what I want to talk about, connecting in with that, and saying no to the overthinking about how it needs to be edited, or there needs to be cover photos, or there needs to be this, because traditionally this is what it takes to make a podcast. Because sometimes when we follow our mind, we lose that heart and soul connection to what it is what they're doing. So where in your life are you overthinking it? And how can you re-embrace the joy and the love of doing the thing in the first place? I'm Suzanne Culberg. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first episode of the Nope Coach podcast, I invite you to go and listen to one of the other 197. And if you aren't on my email list, head over to my website, suzanneculberg.com, click on newsletter, pop your details in there. I will send you an email once a week or so that you actually want to open. I'd love to visit your inbox. See you on the next one. Bye for now.